Alright, I've got my dash cluster all tore apart here, and this is my original bezel, which we're going to put a floor shift in it. So taking the console shift off, and you can see how nasty that is. Gary ordered this nice new bezel and a nice new lens, and it doesn't have the shift indicator down through here. That'll be on the floor now. I found these gauges that are somewhat like my cluster here. I couldn't get the exact, that's kind of a greenish color in the background, but it's pretty close. So what I'll do here now, and when you see that speedometer in there, all you're really seeing is the window, the needle, and the letters are up on the top here. I'll show that how that looks. So I'm going to try to somewhat reproduce that in these holes. So I found these gauges, which kind of look like what I've got, other than the color there. These are white, and that's that greenish color. And I've taken and pried, and I've pried to where the lens come off, and took the lenses off of it. Then I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make these to where you can barely, the little round center part is kind of out of the way, and all you see is the needle and the sweep, and then it'll kind of look like the one in the center. Get as close, but this is as close things I could get to doing that. So in doing that, I'm going to put 2 on each one. So I've made me a little template. So I think what I'll do is I'll cut these out, and then I'll make this out of steel, and then I will weld that in there, and then come up with a way to index my gauges on the back of it, and then come up with a way to put a texture coat over top of that, and then all you'll see is the needle and the sweep, and I think it'll be a pretty cool look. So let me get back to work here, and I'll give you an update in a little bit. Alright, I got a little into my project here and forgot to do a little shooting some video, so I've made quite a few advances since my last shot. So I'll get you up to speed with where I'm at. I went ahead and I've cut these out of the other. I've actually got an extra cluster here. I've cut these out, and then I made these panels, little bitty panels here out of steel, which took a while to make those little windows look like that. And I've welded them in there, and then where the gauge had a little bezel that went around this that snapped in there that was black. So I've taken those bezels and I've actually bonded adhesed those in place to index the gauges exactly where they need to be. And I've got those all glued in place, and then I'm going to show you what it looks like on the other side. Bam! So that's pretty cool. Once I got those welded in, I just ground that flat, and then I've got this peel and stick heat shrink vinyl I got from Heat Shield Products. Give a shout out to Steve Hayes for sending me this. Outstanding product. I cut this the size of that panel. Once I got it in place, I trimmed it to fit, trimmed these out. I actually was able to sand it down a little bit, heat shrinked it around the corners to give it that factory look, and then I shot a little bit of black flat paint across it, and really nice sheen. So you can kind of see how it's coming along, and then my gauges will go in like that, and it all ought to look pretty cool. So I'm getting excited about this now. So I'm fixing to throw this thing together. You can kind of see here where I've had to gouge all this out to be able to get my gauges back in there, and then I'll just have to come up with a way to hold the gauges in place. So that was really good to be able to have these for my indexers for my gauges. So it's pretty easy to index them because they're going to snap right over that and lock into place. And all I got to do is come up with a way to secure them in the back. And I'm also going to drill me a little 3/16 hole right here in the center, and I'm going to put me a high beam indicator right there. So, pretty cool. All right, let me get a little more together, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's all finished up. All right, I'm about done for the day. It's New Year's Day, and it's about almost 7 o'clock, but I'm out here tinkering anyway. When I got my cluster, I went ahead and got rid of my high beam indicator. Used to be down here with these other idiot lights, and I got rid of them. and I took and drilled me a little hole right where my park neutral thing used to be in my cluster. I found this was an old body mount bushing I had that had a perfect size hole in for what I was going to do. So I've actually bonded it in place, and I'm going to let that set. I went to Radio Shack and bought these little 12-volt blue bulbs. I had to grind it down where it'll insert right into that, and then it'll come right out there. Then when it hits high beam, that's where his high beam indicator will be. So I'm going to let this cure all night. I'll put all this together in the morning, and I'll show you what it looks like with our custom gauge installation in our 67 Chevelle. Well, it's the next morning. I've let this set and cure all night long, so I've got my piece glued in place. It's in there pretty strong, got my hole in the front of it. And you saw where I ground my light bulb down. So now I ground that down where it fits real nice and tight into that rubber, where you really have to push it down in there. And now you kind of see what it looks like. And always, before you get all this back together, I'm going to put a test light on, a battery on it to test this power to see how bright my light is. There you go. And that's perfect. Some of these little LEDs and some of these little lights you'll get will be so bright when you flick your high beams on, then you got this real bright blue light in your eyes, where I always check them before you put all this together. Make sure you can see it and it's not too bright or it's not too dim. So now I'm going to put all this together and I'll give you a look at it all together here in a minute. Well, here it is, the moment of truth on my custom gauge set for my 67 Chevelle. This is an original unit. This is what they look like originally. And here is my custom made set with my autometer gauges installed. You can see I got my little blue light on for my high beam. Give you a little closer look at that. And that's how you put custom gauges in a factory console. Now, you see me make my custom console here with my new gauges and all that in place. Well, now I'm working on my dash. So now that this goes, this goes right in there, which is going to be a real nice fit. I've decided to go ahead and talk to Gary. Gary wanted all this stuff gone. So we got rid of all this key stuff. And there was a little panel that goes here. And right here we're going to put a push button start. So it'll have an igniter button right here that'll turn the car on. Then you push and hold it and it'll start the car. And then you push it again, it'll turn the car off. And then in the console, when you open the door, actually where I'll put the key and just be an off and on switch for the key. And this will do everything else. Then getting rid of all of them, I've decided to go ahead and get rid of the radio bezel. So you can see right here, this used to be in there. So I cut it out. Right here used to be a panel that bolted in. This was in sunk right here. Well, to try to make a panel for that and the way that is, I decided to use a long strand kitty hair glass inside there. You kind of have to pick your battles on this, because rolling a piece and installing a piece and doing all that metal work down in here deep, it's going to be extremely hard. So what I can do is that long strand kitty hair down in there deep, and I always put that stuff in low so you don't have to grind it much. That stuff's terrible to grind, hard as a rock, and I'm just using it to fill in the void. So anytime you put that stuff in, just put it in there deep, put it in there low. Go ahead and wipe it down in there deep, and then all you do is just knock it off. And then come back and put your lightweight filler on top of it. Here where the radio goes, I was going to just weld not the radio, but the glove box. I was just going to weld that in place. Well, it fits so poorly around here and so poorly at the bottom that I made me a template and then made this out of sheet metal, 20 gauge sheet metal, and welded that in place. And I did the same for the air conditioner, where the heat controls were. It's gone, and the glove box door, it's gone. So now I've got all that weld in place. I'll wipe and skim all this two more times to make this slick, make this slick. I'm gonna cut out for a front load CD player for right here. And then I'll do some type of texture coating and semi-gloss black, all that. Have my igniter right there. And this right here, maybe a custom emblem or logo or something I'm gonna put right across here. And then with that ought to be a pretty nice look. So I'm going to get back at it and work on this Bondo work, and then I'll get that installed, and I'll show you what it looks like right before I put it back in the car. I got all my dash pieces together, and I got it sprayed the texture coat on it and sprayed the semi-gloss black on here, and it was real late one night and it was looking so good. I went ahead and shoved it all in here and put it in place, and wasn't able to do a video on showing you how it looked out of the car, but you can kind of get an idea now that it's in place and in the car, how it looks. All the texture coating's gone. We're going to have some maybe a Chevrolet script emblem put here, or some kind of custom emblem made to go right here. My push button starts here. My radio I've put in right here, and you can kind of see how my gauge cluster looks right here. But let me just show you how this works. I got a key. I put a key down in here, and then make sure it's in park. You just push this button right here. Oh, it's a beast, isn't it? Sorry about that. It kind of shook the camera around. But let me give you a little closer look. Pretty cool, huh? Well, I've got that all finished up. Now on to my next project.